Let's make a motion to, okay, let them all sit down. It's just
I forget I
there should be enough. You?
Yeah.
There you go. Welcome back. Did you have a great trip?
Don't wait.
Thank you. Right, so we just came out of executive session. We're just finishing our meeting. We have a motion on the floor.
To establish the RFP committee.
Okay.
With 5 people to
I'll
discuss.
second.
All right, all in favor?
Aye.
Anyone opposed? All right, good. All right, I need a motion to close our meeting.
I motion to close the LDC meeting.
And I'll second that.
All in favor?
Aye.
Okay, now I need a motion to open the joint meeting with the town and the village. Bill's motioning.
I'll second it.
All right, excellent. Thank you.
Second.
Elwood.
Thank you.
All right, welcome. Okay,
Thank you.
you're gonna have to flip the slides.
Mary,
Yes.
I'll start right off because I don't know a few people in here.
Absolutely.
Well, and that would be excellent, Al. Thank you. So do you want the LDC board probably to introduce themselves and then we'll ask each board?
We can just, whatever you want to do.
Thank you. All right, so I am Mary Farrell. I am the chair of the LDC this year.
I'm Mandy Mason, vice chair.
Carol Thomas, treasurer.
I'm Bill McDonald, secretary. Dave Snow, the finance committee chair.
Warren Smith, I'm here.
LDC board,
LT board.
LDC board.
Lori Moss, liaison for Chamber of Commerce.
Mike Shabsky, board trustee. Alan Wood, town board.
Dan Larry, town council, liaison for the LDC.
Paul Albertine, town supervisor.
Sheldon Shard, town clerk. Heather Miller, town board.
Jerry Golden, mayor for the village.
Mary Ruff, village clerk treasurer.
Dan Young's village board and LDC liaison.
Christine Stark, village board.
Welcome to our visitors, and we will have an open time for questions at the end of our agenda. Can you bring those slides?
If you hit escape, it'll take you.
Yeah, escape.
Technology.
I just unplug them.
Yeah. Ah, there we go. We don't technically need to share this Jim Center. Just so you know, Jim McQueenie is also on the LDC board. He's remote, but he is not here this evening. That looks better.
Okay.
Well, thank you all for joining me to bring up the agenda. So we've got 4 topics to cover with you tonight. We're going to take a quick review. This joint meeting was held last in September, so we take a quick review of what the LDC has been working on in the time in between September and now. We're going to do a strategic plan update. Carol will do a financial update, so it'll be our finances through the end of March, and then we'll have privilege from the floor. So the LDC has been supporting the village on the small project fund. Pam Youngs and I have been coordinating on that. We did have a selection committee, which we took from the LDC board because we were able to get the representation across the board. And so you'll see here the amounts that have been awarded. So you can see all the different businesses and how much the grant was. Their project is more, so that's 75% of what it will cost them to actually have the work performed or to purchase the equipment. You'll see that Frenchtown Market was awarded 77. That is on hold because we are still waiting to understand about the Ag and Markets grant, which New York State has not announced at this time. So that money is there, it's being held, and that's why there's a hold there. So when it's all said and done, of the 300K that was awarded a small project fund, New York State requires a 10% fee for the consultant. That's the 30K at the bottom. And then there is also 15K held back for design. Any questions on that? So all of these businesses, there were 9 applications, all of the awarded businesses and those businesses that did not receive funding have been notified, which is why it's okay for us to talk about it tonight.
Now, if he doesn't take his, is that gonna go to somebody else?
It's going to be a second round.
Second round, okay.
Yeah.
And
And
so all of these have accepted, those top 5 are happening.
yep, those top 5 are happening, and they can actually begin as early as May 1st. The consulting firm that was hired from a list. New York State had a list. We did do an RFP against that list, and this Heritage Consulting was chosen, and it was a good choice, right? Pam and I are very pleased with the work they've done. And they will be on board to administer these through the 3rd quarter of 27. That's the time frame. So they can start as early as May 1st. Any questions? You're going to see some good stuff going on. All right, next slide. Tourism promotion position. We did form a committee. We had 3 excellent candidates apply for this position. We had a committee of 5 who attended the interviews. We also checked all references. It was close. We did a scoring matrix. Everybody scored all the candidates independently, and we came together and got consensus. So the selected person is Stacy Rogers, and we are in the throes of finalizing that contract to bring her on. So this will be funded by the LDC. It will be 20 hours a week. And basically the community calendar is some work that I've partnered with the chamber on because we wanted this person to hit the ground running. So we have gathered all of the different what I'll call nonprofit groups and all the events that they have planned between now and the end of the year. It's actually quite a lengthy list. And we will be able to give that to Stacy to get started on what needs to be promoted to bring people both from a tourism perspective, but we really want this job to promote Cape Vincent holistically as a place to visit and as a place to live. And so we've had real good conversations and working on that community calendar. I've partnered with Ariel Gold Pink. So it's been a joint project between the chamber and the LDC. And what's really nice is that this gives us an opportunity to kind of draw a clear line. So if somebody's business is a member of the chamber does everything that's according to their sponsorship level, right? Whatever they've agreed to, what level they've paid for. This role is not going to advertise individual businesses. They might put out a list of, here are all the restaurants in Cape Vincent. They're not going to put out one for a specific restaurant. That would be the chamber would do that based on their level. The other thing is that they will work closely with the administrative person in the chamber to say what's happening is still going to be the public hard copy item that will be distributed, and people say this is going on in the short term. But having this community calendar allows us to say, well, you don't want the Arts Council to be trying to do something the same day as the Lighthouse, right? So this will give this person not only the list, but all of the contacts so that they can kind of hit the ground running. So we're in the final throes of the contract. Stacy's reviewed it. She has no issues with it. We just have to finish up a couple stuff on our end and it'll be ready to go. Yes.
Yeah, what's the venue, where are you gonna publish that? Like, what's the venue for?
The
reviewing
community
that
one.
calendar? Yeah.
So there's another project which Dave will talk about in our strategic plan, which is called the Umbrella website. It will be there. But also we'll have to see how much fluid we had talked about, like some kind of a pamphlet kind of a thing. I don't know if we can, we might be able to do that quarterly because stuff still changes and there's a lot of TBDs when you get further out in the year. Thank you for the question. Any other questions on this? The board feels really excited about what this can do and fill in some of the blanks that will promote Cape Vincent. Next slide, please. So here's where we are from a grant support perspective. So this is since September. You will see the grants that the LDC has been involved in, particularly our grant writer. So Ag and Markets, still waiting. My understanding from Scott is until there's a state budget, they're not going to announce any grants. So we're just hanging out waiting for that. There were 2 grants that Scott wrote, which were denied. And I believe that he attended with the town board, sort of postmortems on those to understand what made them not successful. I worked with Pam Youngs on this Make Ready grant, which is National Grid. And this grant is we've been awarded it at 90%. This would pay for under the ground infrastructure for EV chargers behind the Chamber of Commerce building. So we've gotten that approval where we put it on hold because it's not going to do a lot of good to have stuff under the ground if you don't have the chargers to put on top of it. There is another grant which we submitted in February. This is for the actual chargers themselves. It is another grant through New York State that is to be announced in the 3rd quarter. So what we told National Grid is that we didn't want to have our main parking lot ripped up during tourist season behind the chamber. And so we would like to put a hold on accepting that grant until September. The idea behind that would be by September, we should hear if we get the chargers, which is 100%. We get 100% back on the chargers. So that would allow all those planets to align on EV chargers behind the Chamber of Commerce. The current grant we requested was for 3 dual chargers, so we would have 6 ports.
And what's the value of that we would receive?
The value of the EV chargers was $263K and change.
And we have a 10%.
No, that's 100%.
No, so the
Oh, I'm sorry. The infrastructure with National Grid, that was 90%, 10% was 16,500, maybe 16,000 and change.
Is what we would pay.
Right, that's all you'd have out of
That's
pocket
not-
at the
that's not
end.
What it actually costs for that.
Oh, no, yeah, it was 160 some, yeah.
Yeah.
So but I think she was looking for out of pocket.
No, I just want to be sure.
Yeah, no, that's good, thank you. So all told, if both of those grants come in place, we would have all the infrastructure under the ground and the 3 chargers for 16,000 at the end of the day. So very excited about that. Fingers crossed we get that one. Any questions on any of that? No? All right, next slide.
Did you guys, what kind of feedback, who went to the LWRP phase 2? What kind of feedback? Why'd they say you guys didn't get it? Did they, who went to the?
Yeah, the funding was, came under the total funding, but they had like 50 times more applicants than ever.
So it's just a question of not enough money to distribute,
Not enough
really?
money to even come close to funding what was applied for. I
Okay,
can't remember the exact numbers, but it was astronomical.
Did they say why on the comprehensive, the smart growth comprehensive plan? Why we
I
didn't
don't
get
think we
that?
talked about that.
thank you.
Great, thank you.
Okay, just going through where we are, the childcare support Scott provided to review the grant before it went in. And thankfully that did get accepted. Just waiting on that, the actual process for that moving forward. So success there. The internal procedures for allowing people to provide support to the town as these grants come through. We've worked through that. Is part of the 10% requirement for the Ag and Market grant was provided here. Can I say that it came from him?
No,
Okay.
we
I
have
won't
an
say.
angel donor.
We're an angel donor from the town came forward and we now have a procedure to allow for that. So we can reach out as people want to help, match grants that are coming forward. Economic development study, we did receive 5 proposals back. They range from 15,000 to 75,000, and we've notified that those applicants that we've delayed that indefinitely to redirect funds to the tourism promotion counts or tourism promotion position, which Mary described just a couple minutes ago. That'll help us get to the next one. The umbrella website, there's a website team, the next meeting's on the 17th to finalize the content that tourism promoter is going to be able to put on the design, I'm sorry, on the hosting and maintained website. We do not have a domain name yet. We're just waiting until we bring the tourism promoter on to be able to keep it updated. We don't want to establish something that is immediately out of date and people immediately fall off on it. A couple of things, Mary did talk about the calendar, but we want to try to expand some of the other areas in there. Talk about it as an annual event map. That's looking at the calendar and see what other opportunities are out there. Resources within the town, the ability to find, for people to come in and find out who's available and what's available within the town. That's, we kind of see that developing a little bit more from, the real estate listing to, who are the right, what other possibilities are out there. Mary was approached with data center opportunity. Somebody was looking to establish data centers in out of the way location, but to be able to kind of market those additional opportunities within the town. And then finally is the bike route piece. Warren's been doing a lot of work with the city, with some businesses in Watertown, seeing options here, both as we get back into the summer, and to publicize some of those opportunities that are already out there. Next slide. The medium priority things, a little bit further down the road. So I just mentioned the resource guide that's going onto the website, looking towards trying to find venues outside of this building for year-round opportunities. And that is, some sort of long-term building or opportunity to bring somebody in here to open up a place that we can use during the winter. Discussing the short-term rental laws, we know the state's going into that already, but try to come up with an economically based proposal for the town and the village on short-term rentals. So working with both the telecommunication companies, the state and the USDA grant process, how to improve connectivity here in the village, both cell as well as fiber opportunities. And then, so the other agencies right now, probably primary is the establishment of the National Marine Sanctuary, but there are other opportunities out there to expand ecotourism here. And then the storyboards, the walking tours, revitalizing that as an opportunity here in the village. The ones that used to go on during French Festival that have kind of fallen off, we'll be able to bring those back in a way that doesn't irritate the residents. I guess that's the best way to put it. Next slide. And then the long-term goals out here, trying to get grant to support traffic from the newly established East End Park safely down into the village, without having to cross the street a couple of times. Community talent management, so that's identifying people in the town who are willing to volunteer. One of the things we have is there are people out there who want to do specific things and would be willing to do those specific things, but may not be willing to go all in. We had some people talking about, wait, why don't you visit, or why don't you want to volunteer for French Festival? Just, I don't want to do everything. But the ability to identify people in the town who have specific things that they're willing to do and be able to put those out there. Mobile advertising, so there's some opportunities when we go to regional economic development locations, or specifically we're talking about Fort Drum. They do career opportunity fairs, things like that, to be able to set up an opportunity to promote Cape Vincent as a follow-on location, especially with Fort Drum right now starting to, or there's opportunities there to take money for transitioning soldiers, so who would be willing to come out here. Talked about ecotourism, yeah, and then the last one on there, the second to last one on there is Horns Ferry and where we're going with that, be able to look at how we can help with that long term. That's kind of the one over the world. Mary, anything you want to add?
No, any questions? I know that's a lot, but it is a strategic plan, so it's a long-range plan. Questions, comments?
Do you want an update on the ferry for everybody?
That would be great.
It's
Yeah,
a good place for that.
it is. Perfect.
Over the last several weeks, I've had several communications, just try to do it quickly. There's two different attorneys involved with Horn State. Peter Tobias is an attorney out of Kingston. He is dealing strictly with Horn Transportation. That's been kind of cut down to just include the two landing sites and the boat. All his other assets and properties went to family, friends, so there's not a lot there. They're in the processes of trying to get an evaluation on what they feel it's worth. I've been kind of part of that. The most recent thing today is if I, on behalf of the village, if I even need to know the numbers, I'd have to do a non-disclosure agreement. They definitely want to keep it private. I said, well, if it's something that we need to act on, I can do it in an executive session with the board and we can keep it internal, but if it's not anything that we need to act on, it might not be necessary. But Bruce Horn and his sister are the two direct family members left of his estate. Bruce and his sister 100% want the ferry sold. They're not interested in operating it. They're not interested in financing it. They would like to see it sold as a whole. Looked at the village, if possibly we'd be interested. I don't believe those numbers would make it even remotely possible for, it'd just be a difficult thing, but I don't know those numbers exact. I did reach out to the Bridge Authority. I thought that might be a good fit. That was kind of a hard no. They saw no value in doing that. So I have also had some communication a couple different times with some of the people on Wolf Island, a couple business owners, the mayor for the Frontenac Islands. Most recently, a couple gentlemen, which I now realize one of them is a family member of the Horns. He is trying to put together a plan where they could get somebody that could buy it through private donation, through government funding. Their desire, as I said, is all of ours on this side is to have the ferry run continuously. One of the big expenses right now, it needs to be hauled out and inspected. It's a $60,000 cost. Those folks, I'm being told, will be willing to take that over time. So that would hopefully allow somebody to continue running it and make payments. On the village side of things, we are still owed $71,000 and past that from Bruce or from George. At the time, Bruce now has taken on that debt. We've offered, I think we've shared it, some different possibilities with that to help make it go away. One of it being if they turn the land over to the village, we could work with them on absolving the debt and giving them free access to the property. The benefit would be that we could get grant money to help try to fix that up, saving the new owners a tremendous amount of cost and liability. Basically, the way I left it, I said we could get very creative to try to help, keep this ferry service running outside of doing a gift, which would be illegal. But it's encouraging. There's an awful lot of interest to try to maintain this. Again, I'm just not sure what they feel the value is, but my fear is they think it's worth a lot more than a business person would think it's worth. But I will definitely keep people, I'll send emails as soon as I know anything. I know they're the goal would be to have it up and running for the summer season and running 7 days a week.
You think they're going to do that, or?
They're trying to do that. A lot of it's like recent, so they're working on, as I'm being told, he is now deceased, but there is a person from the Canadian side that had a lot of money, a billionaire, and he really supported maritime type events. I think they were hoping that maybe there might be some money there that they could put into it. I know they were looking to get some government subsidies. When I talked to the attorney, who's very more of a realist, he says, you know, don't think the money's coming from Kingston, the tax base. It is far northwest, and they don't care about a little ferry running from Wolf Island to the mainland. So he's not overly confident that the government would want to put a lot of money into that. But there's some definite business owners and some other people on that side. Real quick, if we wanted to take it on, say, let's make it a US company, which is definitely, you know, doable, if, you know, they would be willing to listen to that. The ferry could not be used for us. It's Canadian built, and the Jones Act would prohibit us from being able to use that vessel. And they're pretty strict on that one. I've been told, ferry especially, they wouldn't allow it. I say, and I've talked to some people in that business, that ferry has outlived its usefulness. I mean, I know everybody loves the ferry, what it is, but in today's world, it's not a lot of value. And in my mind, or people I talk to on this side, they may find it different. I'll have to wait and see what they can share. If I can share it, I will absolutely send it back. I don't know, they want to keep things pretty confidential, it sounds like, so. What I can, I will, if they let me know.
Jerry, when you say it's not for us, what does that mean?
Not
You said the Jones.
Oh, the Jones Act would, so if you, for the United States, they would run a commercial vessel operation, the boat has to be manufactured in the United States. That ferry was actually built by a guy in Kingston, Wolf Island. The guy working on it last year I was talking to is probably 70 years old. He says his dad that built the ferry, but it's Canadian built. So we could own it, like if I wanted to buy it and I wanted to use it to, you know, go fishing off of all day long.
An American vessel to use.
You have to have an American-made vessel to use for commercial operations in the United States waters, yes.
But there is a process that would allow.
There is, and I was told that ferries would definitely be at the top of the list not to, that's what they're telling me, that would be like the #1 taboo thing. But that's just coming from people that are in the commercial marine business. That being said, I mean, if the town, the village, I mean, there's gonna be so much cost trying to maintain that, run it, operate it. I mean, just the haul out, $60,000. It's, I know it's probably a 5-year haul out, but there's certain, and I don't know if our side would be under more scrutiny than the Canadian side or not. To me, it made the most sense to keep this going fluently is to have somebody on the Canadian side just continue to run it. My fear would be, say you own it, let's just say the Canadian government is, okay, we're not gonna support this anymore. There's no more, you know, customs on the island. That's just shutting right down completely. I mean,
yeah,
you don't have any control. Personally, we have a lot more say. I've been talking to the Border Patrol. I mean, they want to maintain, continue it. Unfortunately, there is definitely going to be some added cost to the village. We will have to supply computers to customs. You know, as it stands right now, nobody's paying the bills. But stuff there, our electric bill alone in that building is like $500 a month right now or something. It's ridiculously high for what it is. What they've got running, we've asked them to take a look and see if they can help save us some money. But I mean, like I said, everybody, I think there's a lot of interest calling the state level. If there's money out there that can help, you know, time will tell.
Jerry, do you have a long-term commitment from CVP to keep the station open?
I don't, other than,
They're taking a 20% hit across DHS right now, so.
yeah, you know what, and that's, again, I would think that with the political climate on our side, it just seems like talking to the state officials, I mean, it's the only international ferry in our country still running. I mean, it's pretty cool to have that here. It seems like a lot of support. You know, with the longevity, long term, I don't know. Hate to see it not be there.
Yeah.
Who would
We
run
all
it
feel
if
the
Bruce,
same
the
way.
kids don't want it?
If they sold it to another company,
Oh,
somebody
they-
in Canada,
that's what
they
they're
would
trying
just,
to do.
yes.
But that whole, I remember there was.
There's always something to do about it. Had to stay the whole family. I believe that probably has something to do with subsidies and things that they were given. I'm assuming that they are looking at all of that part of it and know it well. I don't know. But yeah, I was aware of me. And depending on who does it, I'm told Mac is a relative of the family. I know Colin, that was running it with George before George passed, I believe is the
He's a
nephew or
Nephew, yeah.
nephew, so there's still a bloodline there. The problem I was told is they did not have the means to come up anywhere near with the money that they wanted, and Bruce and his sister were not willing to finance. If they can't sell it as a business, they will piecemeal it and sell off the properties, the both independently. The goal is to have it gone by the end of 2025, coming from the attorney.
Is there any action based on conversations you've had with the attorney or anyone else that we as an entity, the village and the town should be taking to try to preserve?
I don't know, I guess, the last conversation, which I've been trying to get, was to say, well, what do you think the value is? Like, and I said, to the attorney, well, it's a big difference if you say it's $1 million or if it's 10 million. He goes, well, we know it's not worth 10 million. I go, well, I don't know it's worth $1 million. I can tell you, we had the land appraised on our side, and it was 170, 165, 175. The land on the Canadian side, I'm being told, is just the pier. I mean, that's what you're buying, just that dock system that's out there. The house, everything else, I think, went to a granddaughter or a girlfriend. It's like 15 or something told.
I think the only thing that we could do is just to work with the potential buyer to alleviate that 71 grand.
And that's what I
Knock
had
that
said.
off the top of the asking price and try to work with them.
And that was my conversation today with,
Assistance of over here.
yeah, with the attorney and with Mac and the other business owner. There's Bill, got it on my phone, but anyways, I just said, we could be very creative on our side to try to help alleviate, work with potential persons so we can keep the ferry service running.
So a big risk there though is if there's not even gonna be a building for the Canadian Customs to be in.
There's a building there, but I believe that is owned by the Canadian Customs, not by Horns, because it's literally in the road.
Okay,
I just don't know how.
that
they're-
little teeny building.
Yeah, on the Canadian side.
Yes.
Yes. And then on our side, I mean, George literally just owns that pier, and then there's a small shed sitting there. You know, the ballards, all that other stuff is all like customs, they put it in, and then the village obviously built and put up the law building for customs, which in George's time was really good, and we shared those costs and paid them right up until COVID. And then he kind of fell off. We literally had a meeting with him, like 2 days after his passing. And it was his intent, he wanted to get that paid and get it caught up and continue to run the ferry, but obviously it didn't happen. We did have a signed agreement with George the year before where he was gonna turn the land over. What we kind of came up with was we'll absolve the debt at the time of 60-some thousand, give them 10 or 12 years of free use of the property, it cost them not a dime. And then the next 10 years would be for 10,000 a year for a total of 100,000. I shared that information with the Canadian side. They were, I think, impressed with how generous an offer that was for them. I said, you know, maybe some things would change, you have to tweak it a little bit. Can't speak for our entire board, but I believe we could still work something out along those lines to try to continue it. So, like I said, on our part, we will be more than willing to try to continue this. I think we all realize the importance. Bruce shared with me, he said, just a normal average year, not our best, not our worst one, but in 2019, prior to COVID, I think he told me 44 or 47,000 people crossed on the ferry, which really, really surprised me. His point was, you should really be reaching out to state and federal. I mean, this is a lot bigger than the village of Cape. These folks are traveling, I mean, who knows, maybe going across country, but using the ferry service to come across, so.
And there isn't, and you don't believe, to your last comment, that there's any state help at this point that would do anything?
I think there is, I don't, we couldn't get any grants while it was a Canadian-owned business, at least at the state level. We did have some until we found out it's Canadian-owned, and that was quickly said that that can't happen. Is there some federal money? There's possible. I mean, I don't know. We never really got to pursue that. I do know, talking to like Bobby Cantwell, talking to Mark Walzik's office, Scott Gray's office, they're all like, you know, whatever we could do. to help
They just
keep
don't
the
know what to
ferry.
do.
But, yeah, I mean, right now, it's still up in limbo. I mean, they're trying to, I hear his estate was an absolute nightmare and a mess, and they're trying to sort it out. Bruce and George were not getting along at all. Bruce and George were 50-50 owner in Horn Transportation. George had 100% control. So the sister was trying to get all the assets of Horn Transportation put back into Bruce's name so they could actually do something with the business. But he has zero interest in running it or continuing it, is what I'm being told. At this point, I quit trying to reach out to Bruce directly because there's attorneys involved and I don't want to do anything that's inappropriate. So I try to deal basically with Peter, a couple of the business owners, I copy Peter on anything I'm sending to them, so he's aware. And so far, you know, no issues. I think they appreciate the communication. I sent them the appraised value of what we found it to be, what was owed on it. I sent them over, Mary did for us yesterday or today, the agreement we had with George, in case they wanted to try to come up with something similar. At least it gives a prospective buyer some comfort knowing there's some things we can do to help make it lucrative, try to cut their costs down considerably. If they could get some subsidies out of the Canadian side, I could definitely see this being, I mean, as far as I know, Colin has passed, he's got his captain's license. In Canada, you have to have a captain and an engineer on board. And George did not always have that. On our side, we only require a captain for a vessel that size, so there's some different rules, you know, depending on what country is running it.
Any other questions on that topic?
Just to reconfirm, I think you already said it, but the Wolf Island community is every bit is committed as the village of town.
100%. Everything I'm hearing, they all know desperately. Judy, who's the mayor of what they call the Frontenac Islands, which kind of incorporates all those islands next to Kingston. I mean, she's pretty generous with our money. I don't care, it's got to give it away, you know, to keep this ferry going. So they're pushing hard as we are, try to get it going. They just, unfortunately, I mean, they hold all the cards, right? I mean, it's a Canadian company. They got contact. I mean, they're talking to Bruce and the
They are,
family.
and they're very motivated. I mean, the LDC has had a relationship with those business owners and the mayor of Frontenac Islands. We've met with them repeatedly, mostly to shared tourism, shared arts topics. That's the partnerships with other organizations. That's a piece of that. So we've got a good relationship between them, and I think they realize they need Americans coming across and spending money in Maryville. So, you know, they're motivated as well, so.
And I think they, you know, they're kind of selling this in the Canadian government side, like what a nice olive branch with all the national stuff, like here's two, you know, countries getting along, a little ferry coming back and forth. You know, and like I said, all of this is relatively pretty new. I mean, this line of communication, most of it's happened in the last 4 or 5 days. I mean, at one point I'm reaching to an attorney in Ottawa, then found out that's the state attorney, has nothing to do with Horn Transportation. So it's like probably a week, maybe 2 weeks ago, that this Peter Tobias reached out to me and said he's the one that's actually handling. So at least we have shared emails and phone numbers, and he's been really good this week and the end of last week, keeping this up. So as soon as I know what I can share, I absolutely will put it out in the group email. I'll give it to Mary, and then she could make sure all the boards know, because obviously it's important to everybody.
Thank you for that update. Any other comments or questions on our current state of our strategic plan? If not, we'll move to financials. Okay, next slide. Yeah, it's a nice chart.
So our 2025 budget, our town and village revenue is $50,000, 30 from the town, 20 from the village, which is half of the previous years. We project interest earnings of 1,130, so our income will be 51,130. Our accounting fees, this is unavoidable and it's too much money, but it's 9,900, and that's for the required audit and that you have to have.
And we I'm sorry, Carol, we should have said we did do our audit and we passed. That should have been.
How much was that?
$9,900.
$10,000 for an audit?
And audit and tax prep,
Yeah.
it's,
Michelle, do they charge the town that much?
The town doesn't do them.
Which town gets audited? Doesn't the town get audited, Michelle, once in a while?
Once in a while.
Yeah,
And we have to do it, according to our charter, we have to do it
the
annually.
village has never had an audit?
Every
Do
year.
every year.
Okay,
And we pay
how much
those
does yours
numbers.
cost?
Much more. Than that. Oh, more than.
Yes.
Much more than.
Oh,
The
okay.
village
Oh,
doesn't
yeah.
have an audit either. The village has an agreed upon procedure,
Yes.
which is way step down from the audit that the LDC is required to have.
Yes, and audits are way more expensive than what we pay, which is more than that.
so that price is our audit, our tax preparation, and any help we might need from them.
So that's
during the
just
year.
I remember we had this discussion last year. That's just a fixed cost that's never gonna change.
It's never- right.
It might go up.
But it's not something that, or do you put it out to bid? I-
Well, we did and
We
got
did.
one bid.
That's-
Yeah.
that's-
We certainly could RFP it again, but
Yeah,
they're just not out there.
Jesus, you think for 10 grand on a budget that size.
And I mean, we don't have much activity at this point,
yeah.
but yeah, so that, anyway, that's where that one is. Our administrative assistant, we budget 2,400 a year for that. Dues and memberships, $40, which is the Chamber of Commerce. Education and training, 2,500, that's, we did a few things last year, so that's in there. I don't know that we have anything planned this
We
year.
don't have anything planned this year, but we did have it on the budget.
I can see it.
Yeah, you can't read that at all. Legal and professional fees, we allocate for MRB. What's MRB stand for?
I don't know.
It's a
they're just-
consultant.
It's a consulting firm and we just keep them on retainer.
And we never use that
Yeah,
amount.
they help us to
either.
make sure Paris is put in correctly, which is another. legal
So they're
requirement for us.
valuable. Thing, we have to enter our budgets and our, what is on in Paris, which is the New York State reporting system. So they help with that. Office supplies, software, website, domain, hosting, $1,865. Insurance, $1,025. That covers our office as well as the majority of it is our board.
Yeah, liability.
Yeah.
Director insurance.
Rent and lease, we, 900, but we split $75. It's 150 a month and the Arts, Cape Vincent Arts Council pays 75 a month of that. So then we budgeted about 55,000 for our strategic initiatives, which has turned into a tourism promotion position. The website, we want to do an image package, like we need some LDC, that's going to be part of, we believe, some sort of, the sign and the things that you might have that say the LDC stuff that you buy once and the EV charging station infrastructure. We're gonna have the 10% of that if that happens. And community micro grant fund is something that we I don't think brought up on the other, but that's something we have been discussing, but that's on hold because we have less funding. So we expect we budgeted to effectively overspend our revenue by 50,000, but we do have reserves. If we want to go to the next slide.
And on the EV charging station, some of that money was for administration, right? Because those grants would need to be administered. And we would have to, again, if those grants all happen, they're gonna have to be administered. And that would be part of that expense as well.
So because it's a negative budget, we do have, we have 2 CDs, both a little over $50,000. We never keep very much in the checking account and our savings account as of the end of March was 86,000. So we have $191,000 in cash on hand. So we clearly can fund our negative this year.
What was your negative this year
We expect to be 50,000,
for 2025?
correct,
All right, so even with that, you expect to have 140,000.
correct. That's correct.
And keep in mind with the tourism position, right, we've budgeted for that salary. We don't know how to budget, full disclosure, for an operating budget for that, right? It's not cheap to place ads in papers and, travel to conference, and we just don't know how to budget for that. So as we start to get into this, that you'll start to see that earmarked, but we just didn't know how to budget for it.
Do you have a salary for that yet?
Yeah, it's probably gonna be in the 27.5 which we budgeted 30. So the selected candidate was a little less, one was at 30. So, and they're gonna bring their own computer, which we had budgeted for, so that's, how it came down from 30.
She 20 hours a week in the office or 20 hours a week?
20 hours a week, some will be in the office, but, they'll be, going to Channel 7 and conferences, or, what do you call those, trade show things? There'll be, all of that will be contained in there. But yeah, there's gonna be there will be someone in that office for periods of time unless there's other things going on.
Carol,
Yeah.
you mentioned, if the EV grant comes in, there's that $16,000 community share. The LDC covers that.
Unless we get an angel donor.
Yeah, no, at this point, I would say we probably won't.
I was under the impression you weren't.
We're-
so I-
yeah.
We're like kicking our heels. if you-
Yeah, the village. Yeah, the village, where
The LDC does not cover that?
yeah, so
Carol, I
really,
like the
what
way you do
we,
your
nice
math.
try, really nice try, and Carol, I don't know what Christine gave Carol to make her say that, but.
You noticed we weren't arguing.
Yeah, there's gonna be, we're gonna have to figure, we plan, because there's gonna be administration on that,
You
right?
guys should be able to make some money off the grant if you administer. it,
If
right?
we
So you'll get a
administer
pot.
it, right, so what we're gonna have to see is, what's the administration, how do we do that?
Sometimes it's like 10%.
Yeah,
administration
yeah, and
costs.
I haven't seen that level of detail on that.
And that's out of the New York side anyways, right?
Yeah, so
Yeah.
and it's two separate grants,
Yeah.
right? So you got the infrastructure and you got the charging station. So there'll be administration, which, technically our grant writer planner would be doing possibly. Or we work something out and, as we get it, it could be, yeah, we'll pay the 16 and you guys administer it. I mean, we can, we'll figure that out. But we had to put money in the budget because there's gonna be expense there.
So is that EV grant a village thing or an LDC thing?
I was hoping it would be an LDC thing, but they did it for the village.
You had, if they were a municipality had to file. So Pam and I worked in partnership on that, but the name on the grant application needed to be a municipality, so it is the village. Just like many of the grants that we take care of, right, that Scott writes for the town, right? We take care of the grant writer's contract, but the town's name has to go on it because it's gotta be a municipality.
Correct, yeah, I understand that.
The only one that's gone in so far that has the LDC's name on it is the Ag and Markets grant, because we were allowed to do that. That was a grant we could be the sponsor of. But there was also a 10% requirement, which was in the tune of $33,000 and change. And we got an angel donor to donate that money, so we didn't have to pay it. You can applaud now.
What do they feel about the angel? What do they feel about EV charging?
They were one of
Last
the,
resort.
I think they were one of the letter writers. I just throw that out there.
I think that this is a good example of it, this EV grant. When you know ahead of time, it's not a percentage, you know what that number is.
For what? I'm sorry.
The community share, you know it's $16,000, correct?
If,
That's not a
if
guess.
if both grants are approved, it would be $16,000 and 16.5 or something. I can't remember the change part.
In my opinion, especially in light of the numbers I'm squinting to see, I think that is a perfect example of stuff that the LDC should fund. When you know what the number is up front, you're using the villages and towns committed money anyways. And we all know what it is up front. That's something, in my mind, when we first created this corporation, that those would be the things that the LDC would cover.
I think it's easy to have that conversation when it's $16,000.
I agree, that's what I'm saying.
Right,
You
but
have
so
that discussion.
let's lay that out though. Let's to try to manage things in a consistent manner, which, we are really very process and procedurally focused. So let's say that percentage was $1 million.
No, like I said, I agree. I think you look at every single grant as a standalone grant. You don't have a singular process for it. And in this instance, you look at it, you review it, you know what the number is prior to submitting for the grant application or submitting for the grant.
Right, but
And you make a
also,
decision at that time
what we have
that
to,
we think the LDC will cover it, or the village will cover it, or if it's a town, you know, if it's an application on behalf of the town will cover it. So I guess all I'm saying is, in this instance, I would think it makes sense for the village to cover
Yeah,
it.
so-
That's
right,
all.
but you also have to realize that we have our strategic plan. And the town and village put us together and they wanted a strategic plan, so we developed a strategic plan. EV charging stations is not on our strategic plan. I'm not saying it's not good, I think it's great. But we also have to have a focus. So if it's something the village and town are really adamant about doing, we can take that into consideration. But we've talked about this and where our priorities lie, right? So that's why we have a strategic plan. So we also have that to come in.
Which
to
you
play.
put
Yeah, and I
energy
think,
charge
I
on
just
top.
want, can I just say one thing for clarity? So when we apply for the grant, and let's use the National Grid one, for example, we don't know what that percentage is going to be. Right? Because what they did is we said, we'd like a grant, and then they do all their evaluation and they say, okay, your median income is this and blah, 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 blah. Okay, we're gonna give you 90%. They're gonna come back and say they're gonna give you 50%. Right? So just for clarity of people listening, going into the grant, you don't always know what the percentage mix is gonna be. Sometimes you do, right? Small projects, 75, 25 clear up front. In the course of the EV grants, we did not know what percentage it was gonna be, just for clarity.
Totally get it, I guess, and I'm not talking about an EV grant in general, I'm just saying, in these situations, when you know what the number is now, we all know what the number is, I think it would make sense to have the conversation. Who's on the hook for that? It shouldn't always just necessarily be the village is, because we're submitting on behalf of the village. Or
So-
the town is, because we're submitting on behalf of the town. That's the
Yeah.
only point I'm trying to make.
Yeah,
Not towards any individual grant. Just have the conversation. I don't think we should automatically assume town or village will be responsible for the community.
You're
Okay, so let's-
100% right, because there are gonna be ones out there that neither of you want to do that may be on that plan later on, that neither the town or the village wants to take on, that we should, that we can do because of, I'll call it infighting, but that you guys disagree that it needs to be done.
Sure.
Yeah, but you can't pick and choose whether you're gonna give them just because it's 16, or what if it was 160,000?
That's what I'm saying.
So I don't think you can pick and choose. I think you gotta go one way or the other, or have a cap on it.
Well, I mean, to Paul's point, I think it's a great opportunity. That's one of the reasons we get together twice a year is to have exactly that conversation. And, just using the EV chargers, this might represent, an opportunity where it makes sense for the 16,000 to come out of I'm not saying it should, but it just, this is a great
let's play,
conversation.
yeah, but let's play this scenario out. If both grants are approved, right, this could all be a moot point, but let's say both grants are approved, Jerry signs off on the National Grid, and we buy the things. The village is going to be on the hook to pay that
Whole thing.
$400 and some thousand dollars,
yep.
right? And then the village is going to get reimbursed. So is the suggestion on the table that we just give the village 16,000 up front and say, okay, so we're going to reimburse you I mean, it just feels
The
backwards. to
16,000
me.
isn't reimbursable, that's the share, right? So that money never gets reimbursed, so the village files and gets everything back, but they would always be out that 16,000 or. And at
Right,
the end of the day, we do have to remember one key point, which is all the money that you guys are managing is municipal money that, the taxpayers.
right.
gave.
So, yeah, and this is where I think this is where it's an interesting thing that we need to consider. So I feel like we get two different directions from the municipal boards. In some instances, we get, you're a smart group of people. We put you in place so you can manage things and handle things. And then all of a sudden it's, well, but it's our money, so you should do what we say. So it feels like we only have independence when it's to your benefit.
So my thought when we set this up, and I might be wrong, I thought the whole plan was for you guys to be able to manage, because you do have some very sharp people on your board. I think way smarter than, way outweigh me and on all this.
Me
But
too.
if there's money to be had, like, let's look at that grant, and I don't know what it is, but let's say it's a total $350,000 grant, and there's 10% to manage it. So there's 35,000 on the table to manage it. It would be my belief, you guys, this board, that would, so it's a way for you guys to make money doing, Scott's salary, whoever else. Now they're working for it, but you're getting the money back and maybe becoming self-sufficient or something. I mean, so yeah, maybe you're paying 16,000 just on that particular one, but maybe the payback to you guys is double or triple that, which I would applaud, get all you can.
I think Al and I are saying the same thing, right?
Yeah.
I think,
are.
I think we need to be consistent.
Mhm.
I don't
I
want
don't know
us.
if you can on every grant, because some of them.
Well, but what if it's for an individual business? Should we pay that then? Let's say the 16,000 was for Marina. Should we pay the 16,000 then?
I think that's an arrangement you have with the business owner, and I don't have a problem with it.
But the municipalities would be okay using taxpayers' money to pay that
No,
for
I-
independent.
You're doing, I think I guess my thought was if you go in with let's say we had talked about, Van Reed's about the marina, and they come and say, hey, we want you guys to help us get a grant. It's a private business. I mean, they're gonna give you the shares, you're gonna manage whatever relationship you have. I don't have a problem that you're working and trying, and to me, it's like the Hotel Roxy is now for sale. I would think you guys might be looking hard to find somebody that might wanna come in and run that possibly as a benefit to the community. Might be something out in the town, wherever. I'm just, anything we can do to help promote Cape as a whole, I think is a good thing, but maybe there's some logistics stuff I'm not aware of, so I defer back to what's legal and
It's
right.
legal.
And one
Yeah,
last
I don't
piece
think
that
you should be funding a private business. I think that's a totally different conversation than funding the local share of a project match through the municipality. I don't think those are apples and oranges.
But I think you should be able to use the grant writer and planner to help that private business.
Yeah.
Oh,
yeah, I
absolutely.
agree.
Well, that case in point, what this fine group of folks has done for us at the market. Or agreed to use Mr. Berto's services to help a private
To
business.
benefit the community as a whole.
Right, because uplifting businesses in the community is going to uplift the community as a whole.
Well,
That's the whole point.
And the Ag and Market Grant is actually the perfect example of how the LDC can work, because they could get an angel donor. Not the town and the village couldn't have gone to an angel donor. They got an angel donor to make the match. And the community planner was used to get the grant. To me, that's the way it's supposed to work.
And that's an easy answer when it is a one-of-a-kind business.
Right.
So one of the things we've been talking about is there's 5 marinas. Do we write a grant, the same grant? Do we have our grant writer write the same grant for all 5 marinas?
If all 5 want to play,
No,
No.
because
it's not fair.
We can't. And it's unethical for the grant writer to write 5 grants, right? So that's where we're trying to put these processes in place. And the feedback is great, but we have to also understand there's the whole development of the development committee is putting processes in place and moving forward, doing those processes. So I think there is a process about the municipalities and the grants, but we also have to understand, we don't have the 400,000 to put up, so we can't administer a grant by ourselves right now. Like this EV one, if we go back to that, it's gonna cost the
More
village
than we have.
$400,000. We don't have that. And then they'll get it back, which is great. And who pays the 16? And I don't think it's an open and shut case right now, but it can't be every time we apply for a grant from the municipality that we pay it. It has to be an
Oh,
open
no,
discussion.
no, no, that's,
Right.
It just
that's my
should be
whole
a
point, is I
discussion.
I think this entity, the LDC, should have the conversation. That's all.
I also want to remind everyone that these EV chargers will be income producing for the village.
Will be what?
Income producing for the village.
all right, Carol, that's enough of that.
Oh, it was a stretch.
Or a private company that you may let them manage it and run it and then maintain it.
So, well, the way the
For
grant is
someone.
written
Oh.
is you're gonna
gotcha.
buy them and you will,
Manage.
right? And then we put a service contract as part of that so that somebody could fix them. That's part of that grant. So yes, that is a good point, right? The money will be going back into the coffers of the village, and they can't come to us. Yes, come to you. Because it's your grant.
But they can come back to you when we, at the end of the year, when we write.
Well, there you go. There you go. We'll put that right in the IMA,
You know what I mean?
and you'll be
We-
upping your amount,
as
right?
we keep
Because of
supporting.
that financial
Or
gain.
we won't cut.
Yeah, which is, yeah, regular. Yeah, go ahead. Next slide, please.
But I do want to go back and point out that, so this year we're operating at a 50,000 deficit. And because we took a couple of years to get rolling when we started funding this whole thing, it won't be long before it's untenable, is really kind of my point that I was trying to get to a while ago.
Can I get a copy of that, Carol? Because I don't understand how you,
Sure.
because I guess the bottom line is we only gave you 50 this year to cost you 100 to run this year. Is that what you're saying?
Yes.
That's what we have budgeted.
Okay. And it cost you 100. I guess I'd want to see it. I don't know how you spend it.
I think one of the things she missed saying is,
'Cause I can't see that.
We haven't spent,
the Scott's contract. We
Oh,
haven't
yeah,
had
but
all
did I
that.
skip up? Did I-
But it was on those grants.
Oh, I did.
Now I
I jumped
understand.
right over the.
So some of that is like-
I understand now.
26,000 that we're
Those,
putting
those
towards-
grants you had, yes. Okay,
Yep.
I understand now. I got you.
Okay.
Yep, thank you.
And of course, that's a budget. That's not where we're at.
Yep, 100%. I got it now.
But it only takes a few years for the surplus that we had because we were getting rolling. It took an extra year to even get the corporation in place
Yep.
and all of that stuff.
Yep.
But
And that's
just long
great.
as
the
that
stuff
be
you're
gone,
doing.
so everybody's got to be cognizant of that.
Wonderful.
Yeah. So with the half funding,
Mhm.
that's where we ended up.
Mhm.
So I guess I'm saying that the full funding is actually the right number. Effectively, when, now we've taken on the tourism promoter. So that's in a nutshell.
Mhm.
Yeah.
Which we hadn't budgeted for because that was brought to us.
Right. But on the other hand, you don't want to be having, if next year you got 190,000 sitting in there again, you know what I mean? You don't want to have, if you got audited, I gotta imagine they told you, you got a lot of money sitting in there.
No, they did not. They, we have a very nice clean audit and it's understood that we're trying to build
Okay,
initiatives to be able to do my community micro grants
okay,
or whatever, but you have to have some money. Like you said, we don't have a tax base.
right.
So,
I
Yeah.
continue to say we needed to feather our nest, right?
Yeah.
So if, so the Ag and Markets grant, right, was a grant that the LDC could apply for. Of all those grants we talked about, that was the only one that didn't have to be a municipality. LDC was part of it. We were the applying organization. Because we knew our funding was cut 50%, right? We went out and found somebody to give us $33,000, right, to be able to do it. What we want to be able to do is when the LDC can be the organization sponsoring it, we want to be able to pay that amount, which is why we're putting the money away. So we're
I
in
think
that
that's great,
situation.
and I applaud it. Why is that different than you just said you can't do that for all the marinas? What's the difference? Like, if you're doing things like that.
So I guess the question would be, so let's say there's first the problem that there is one grant
No, I
and
understand.
5
I'm
want
just
to
saying, how
apply
do you
for it.
pick, I mean, like, I'm just trying to figure out your guys's.
you're actually hitting on something, Jared, that we are actively discussing,
Okay,
which is our process and
Gotcha.
standardization.
Yeah,
So
because,
we hear you.
I just want to make
And
sure
we
I don't
agree.
send you people that.
yeah, no, I
shouldn't be
mean,
sending you
I
because
would
you
say,
can't do
no,
it.
no, I mean, we absolutely believe across the board, and I think I can say this based on our previous discussion, that whoever is contracted with us as grant writer, their job is to be out looking for grants, regardless of who the sponsoring organization would be.
You
Right.
just point them out to the people and say.
Exactly,
"Hey, it's
exactly,
here."
right,
And let
and as a
them-
matter of fact, right, because one of the reasons this came up is up until now, the businesses we've been involved with have been one-only businesses.
Gotcha.
Right? One daycare center, one grocery store.
Gotcha.
Right? So it was clean. Now, we've got a very good opportunity with the new marina owners. But how do we handle the other 4? Right? So we need to be consistent.
No, I agree.
There is an agreement that our job should be, part of our job should be out looking for that, for our grant writer to be out looking all the time for grants and then making sure whoever can apply for those grants is aware of them. That we've got to do. Now you get to the point of, right, grant writing has 3 major phases. Find it, write it, administer it. when there's multiple businesses that are able to apply for a grant, how do we play for phases 2 and 3, writing the grant, administering the grant? And that was part of our discussion in an executive session prior to you guys joining us. Because that's starting to happen now, right? So as we've evolved as an LDC, we've had to continue to put consistent procedures and processes in place. Because we don't want someone coming back and saying, well, why did you do it for them, but you didn't do it for us, right? Which is,
I'm just saying, they asked, right?
They requested. I mean, that's the way I look at it.
I'm sorry,
They asked for it. They requested it.
but you couldn't have our grant writer, let's say there was a grant that came up for a marina, and we have 2 marinas come to us and say, we'd like to apply for that.
That's
That's
it
it.
one. We did.
Why can't they both apply for it?
because
But we're
one
gonna
of them
pick
did.
one and say, we like you better than them, so we're gonna write the grant for
No,
you, but
I
not
don't
for
think
them.
you Say we like you better than them.
Based
I
on
think
the
you
impact.
evaluate both businesses. You see how each business impacts the community in a positive and negative way. For example, I think right now with everything that's being developed in the village and the importance of Anchor Marine today, if you were evaluating who should be awarded a grant,
It's been like
would
the
most
downtown
likely
businesses, there's
outweigh
like 10 or 12,
another marina.
only 6 got funded.
Today. I think that is totally fair and defendable that you take the information given by both businesses and you make a decision, which one impacts our community the most? This is the one we are going to decide to pursue said grant for. I have no
But if
issue
I
with it.
use Carlton Villa, Paul, as an example, right? You said, you've got to pay the grant writer to write Carlton Villa Restore New York.
We didn't pay them, but anyways, they got paid.
Right, but I mean, you chose to say, we'll tell you a grant writer, we'll give you the name of a grant writer, right? And then Scott was separately contracted with Ron Clapp to write that grant, correct? Why did you make that choice?
Anybody that comes to us and they want one of those grants, we'll let them do it.
That's what we're exactly saying, that we wanted to have the permission to
But
do
we
what
want
you're
to,
saying. you're
but we
not
want to be
looking for.
more able to provide more resources to find the grants. And so this is what we're working through anyways, and I think we're probably getting our.
Right.
I still don't understand, if you got a grant, why can't, if he applied for it and I applied for it, you apply for it?
But that's what we're saying, Al, is we agree with what you're saying.
Yeah, I would just have
We would-
all 5 Marines apply for it.
We want to be, what we had just talked about is we want to be able to provide all the businesses multiple grant writer options. So if they all want to apply, they all can apply with different grant writers and they hire them individually. We help find the grant, we send the information out to the businesses, and then they take it from there. And administration, we can
Yeah, I'm
maybe
good with that.
administer, and they could contract with us to administer, so we can have some revenue.
Yeah.
But this is all a work in progress.
Which is different than I think what Paul was
Must
saying.
be, but that's what we're,
Totally different what Paul was saying.
Yeah, I mean, I just think.
we are disagreeing.
I just think that because, I use, for example, the grocery store. In the true sense of the word, we only have one grocery store in the village, in town.
It was
But-
easy, there was
But
only
we
one.
do have other stores that some could confuse as a grocery store, for example, the Dollar General. Could you say, well, they're in competition, we shouldn't have had our planner write a grant for Frenchtown Market because, there is another grocery store in town. I don't think it matters. I think everyone in this room has an understanding how vital the Frenchtown Market is to the town of Vincent,
Absolutely.
especially when compared with other grocery stores that exist within this town. I think you could make the same argument for Anchor Marina or any other business that you feel like is vital to this community. I don't think you are shortchanging another business by not providing the service to them. I think it is perfectly defendable to single out certain businesses and say, this is vital to our community. Therefore, we are going to allow our grant writer to write. said
May I
grant.
ask, are you giving us direction or
I'm not,
opinion?
I'm
It's a-
just stating it.
Okay, thank you.
But I don't think you advertise if you got a marina, we got one interested, if you guys wanna come in and apply, I mean, nobody's gonna get any.
I mean, at this point, honestly, if we want to talk specifically, Anchor Marine is not asking us to write any grants.
Yeah,
They asked us
there's
to
not
find
even-
grants.
Would this be a good, maybe just, because I think I wanted to get everybody up to speed, I know.
Yeah, that
you've
would
been
be
on some
great.
meetings.
Thank you.
Jake Van Reenen and his wife purchased, or in the process, they haven't closed, but maybe in a week, Anchor Marina. I know at the time, there was a lot of effort, mainly at the town level, some of the village, to get Metalcraft to go in and open their shop at Anchor Marina, put a lot of effort in. They have since pulled, they are now back to Watertown. Jake and his wife plan to put a $2.5 million travel lift in, move commercial vessels, be able to do inspections. He wants to manufacture boats like Metalcraft right in Cape. I mean, it's kind of an exciting plan if these guys, and if you know them or you see what they're doing. I mean, they're the real deal. They're out there busting. He goes anywhere in the world. He's not shy, no fear, but he wants to make it a show place as far as for boat dockage for seasonal boaters, transient. And then the other half would be like a legitimate boatyard where they could pull large vessels, like the tour boats, things right now that everything has to go to Canada. There's nothing on our side to do. So I kind of worked with them a little bit and trying to help get Ron to agree to sell it. They came to terms. He is buying everything at the marina across the street except for the gas station and the restaurant. He wouldn't release those two properties. He came to me, he was looking for tax breaks. I know how important this whole marina has been for all of us, I mean, for a long time. And like I asked about a sidewalk going down, he goes, well, it's not my land, you guys do what you want with it. I mean, just a totally different attitude. I think he's gonna be really good to work with. So when he came to us and looking for tax breaks, I said, I would be way more in favor of helping find you grants. And I don't believe for a minute they're asking anybody to write them grants. They did have a meeting. His wife is an attorney by trade, but she is driven. She's already reached out and recommendations to Edgewater. They've been in contact with them, looking at different grant opportunities. So in this particular case we talk about, I don't think the LDC's really on the hook for anything other than just helping get them pointed in the right direction. And honestly, she will go over top of Scott in about 2 seconds because she's gonna sit back and wait. I mean, they're actively working on this hard. And I think it's gonna be so beneficial to our whole community. I mean, he's talking about hiring some high-end people. He's selling his business in the town of Clayton, the shop he's got on Crystal Springs Road. He wants to move that part down here, so they're manufacturing boats, docks. Most of his heavy commercial work will be out of Clayton, but it just logistically makes sense. But the travel lift idea is pretty cool. He said there's nothing on the American side from, going up the other side of Montreal.
He said
all the way to Oswego.
Oswego to Messina.
Yeah, there's just nothing. He wants to pull, when these large boats need to get inspected, he goes, we'll have a legitimate shipyard. So anyways,
Thank you.
I'm happy to see, that's been such a blighted mess, and part of the deal was that all the blighted boats, Ron wants to keep, they may end up out in the town, I don't know where they're going. I even volunteered to spend a day or two to help Jake block them up to get them out of there, just to help.
Yeah, could we find out where exactly those are moving? And is there any kind of regulation to not have it like, so it was ugly coming in this way to town and now it's gonna be ugly coming in this way? Just checking.
It would be depending, I mean, honestly, it kind of falls into zoning. I know he owns the buildings by the prison. So
Oh, you
all
think
those-
it's gonna go
Jake
that
does
way?
or Trottier?
Trottier.
Trottier does, yes.
So I would think, 'cause there's a lot of boats.
So he doesn't own anything
He does.
coming
He does,
down
yeah.
this
He
way?
does, he owns the old Chuck Aubrey farm out on James Street.
Where that big hotel sign that's now.
Oh, the home of the big O,
Letters,
the home
yeah.
of the big O.
I know Jake offered to get those.
I thought it was a good
across the
tourism
road. He said,
line.
"Oh my God, no, those are valuable." I don't know what I don't know what
You
the
got it.
zoning is out, I don't know.
It has to, we looked into zoning to try and get rid of them in the village. Nobody has an abandoned marine vessel ordinance is what has to be in place. You guys want help? I've done some footwork on marine vessel.
My guess is half of them will fall apart before they even get on.
Yeah.
They're
Yeah.
so bad. I don't know.
Alright.
He hasn't shared that, but if I find out from Jake, or, because he's gonna probably help.
Yeah.
Orchestrate the move.
Have a big bonfire.
He offered, I said, you'll give me an excavator in a couple hours now, the rest we make some small, but he does think they're valuable, so.
All right. I believe that's the end of our formal presentation. Questions, direction?
I will give you my direction from, as a board member. I don't know if the rest of the board agrees with it or not, but
Direction or opinion?
this is what my thoughts on the LDC were, is that you were your own entity and we formed you and gave you that money so you could go out and do it as your bylaws and regulations tell you. And the only thing I do is when Danny goes to a meeting, he goes back and tells me. Now, I won't lie to you, like when he told me, you mentioned that you were gonna do that survey or whatever, spend 30 or 40,000, I'm like, oh my Lord. But I didn't call and complain and anything.
It's good because we won't answer.
My
that.
point
No,
is,
just kidding.
you know, everybody's trying to do this and that. You are the LDC. We give you that money, spend it as you, and if you're all, as Jerry said, very smart people. I mean, the backgrounds you got are just amazing. And so, as a town board member, when you come to me, I'm gonna say, do what you feel needs to be done.
Thank you.
Now, when you come and say you're spending 50,000 for whatever this was, I would have said,
Economic Development Survey.
yeah, well,
Study.
so anyways.
So before everybody packs up, I do have.
Yeah, and we have to
questions.
open to the floor as well.
Well, I thought that, I thought.
Oh,
this
yeah,
was
no,
good.
do this, and then I was just gonna say, don't everybody leave, because we have to.
So one of the points that we didn't get to in our earlier session has to do with the community planner role and a review and an alignment discussion. So this position was created, or was basically put in place 3 years ago when the LDC stood up. And it's our feeling, I didn't get to speak to the whole town board, so it's just the village board, that it's probably time for a joint review to ensure it continues to meet the evolving needs of both municipalities. I think a discussion on whether the current position description is still aligned with community goals and the benefits of the utilization of the RFP process for the next iteration of this position. So I know that the community planner position is up again for renewal.
The June 30th is the end of this contract period.
And so this is kind of the target time, since we won't get another opportunity to discuss it. And just as part of the discussion, this position is currently the only one that the LDC has not submitted through an RFP process. It could be helpful at this point to evaluate the position description and advertise to see if there's additional talent in the area capable of performing the role, however you guys define it to be. And when I say that, one of the discussions we've had is, as the LDC has evolved, I know the original community planner position was like this big.
Mhm.
Is it still that big? Is that still, or can it be neck down? Are you primarily using this person as a community, as a grant writer?
We have been using it as a grant writer.
So
At this
maybe we
point.
look at scoping it and making it a grant writer, and my big thing is advertised. It still is the only one on your books that has not been, advertised since the LDC has been put in.
Well, I can kind of shorten this up, is we did vote tonight to reevaluate the RFP for that. We are going to RFP it. Vote on that, and we have a committee established to look at the position. So everything you're actually saying was part of our executive discussion tonight.
Okay, then I yield the remainder of my time.
You could have done that with 5 minutes ago.
All right, I would like to take the opportunity, thank you for coming and listening to Sausage Be Made. Any questions or comments from the floor? No, we beat you into submission, didn't we?
They were here for long haul.
Anything else from our board?
I'd just like to thank you guys and girls, guys. I know it's been a lot of work getting where you're getting. I definitely see where you guys getting organized and functioning smoothly better, so thank you.
Thank you. Thank you very much. All right, may I have a motion to adjourn the meeting? Yeah, there you go. I got it. And we got a second. All in favor? Aye, thank you. See you guys in September.